Hi, my name is Liza Long, and I'm a mental health advocate, and I'm also the author of this book, The Price of Silence, A Mom's Perspective on Mental Illness, which is about parenting a child who lives with a serious mental illness, bipolar disorder. I'm also the board president of the Boise chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI. A big part of our mission at NAMI is to try to reduce the stigma of living with a mental illness. Stigma is defined as a mark of disgrace associated with a particular quality. Scholars generally distinguish between two types: visible stigma, which is basically judging someone for a difference in their appearance, and invisible stigma, which is judging someone for something we can't necessarily see. Mental illness falls into the latter category. Let me give you an example of visible stigma. It's going to be a little gross. Cheese! If I had started talking to you without this tooth, would you even be listening to me right now? I gotta put it back in, guys. Probably you'd be judging me, wondering if I drank too much sugary soda, or why didn't I try brushing and flossing once in a while? But though you might judge me negatively for not having a tooth, your judgment doesn't really affect how I feel about myself. I know that I lost a tooth in a bike accident, and that thanks to the wonders of modern dentistry, I'm going to get a new one real soon. That's visible stigma. Invisible stigma is different. Imagine if I told you that I suffer from anxiety or depression, which I do. You might think differently about me if you had that information, especially if you were my employer. Now, imagine I told you that I have schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. What thoughts go through your head when you hear those words? Do you think about mass shooters? Are you afraid? With invisible stigma, people even start to judge themselves because of society's perception of that condition. But mental illness is not a choice or a character flaw. It's a biologically based brain difference. One thing we can all do to combat invisible stigma is to watch our language. I'm sure your mom told you that when you were a kid, right? We wouldn't say someone with a cancer diagnosis is cancerous. In the same way, we should try to put people first in all of our communications. People living with serious mental illness are not schizophrenic or bipolar. They're our friends, partners, parents, or in my case, my son. He is Eric, and he is awesome. He is living with bipolar disorder. That's an example of person-centered language. One note, some people, especially within the autism movement, actually see their diagnosis as part of their identity. If that is the case, defer to their wishes in how you describe them. Another thing we can do is to be sensitive to how we use these words. If you're having a bad hair day, I think I am, your hair is not bipolar. If you can't make up your mind about something, you're not feeling a little bit schizophrenic. Bipolar disorder and schizophrenia are both serious medical conditions. With effective treatment, most people can live in recovery in their communities. Despite the media's obsession with violence and mental illness, it's important to know that when treated, people living with mental illness are not more likely to be violent than anyone else, and in fact, are far more likely to be the victims of violence. Another thing to consider is that word disability. Advocates are fighting for words like accessibility or different ability to take the negative connotations away from people whose brains may work differently, but who are not worse than normal. If you really think about it, what is normal anyway? One of my friends says it's just a setting on your washing machine. My point is that words matter. By thinking about what we say, we can impact society's negative messaging about mental illness and end the stigma and discrimination that affect the 10 million Americans living with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or major depression. I hope that you will join me in fighting for hope for kids like my son. If you have any questions, or if you want to learn more about what you can do to end the stigma and how to use person-centered language, I encourage you to contact me on Facebook or Twitter, or you could visit NAMI's website, www.nami.org. Thanks for listening and for putting up with my tooth.